Welcome to the second section of the Google Business Intelligence Certificate. I'm so glad to have you joining me again. Now that you have a solid foundation in the basics of BI, it's time to focus on the actual BI process. This involves learning how to effectively engage with stakeholders, using BI tools to make the most of available data, and applying the power of rapid monitoring for smart business decisions. And one thing that connects all of these aspects of BI is asking questions. Time and time again, I see that the most successful people in our field are the ones who ask lots of questions. We ask our colleagues what's slowing them down or causing friction in a process. We ask about our customers, competitors, and what's going on in the global marketplace. We ask how things work so we can learn about different tools and technologies. When I was first starting out, I would ask tons of questions about the capabilities and limitations of different systems, even if I didn't use these particular tools in my own day-to-day work. That's because just having a basic understanding enabled me to make connections to the work my team was doing and identify ways that I could make positive contributions. For instance, when I joined Google, I was learning about Google's SQL platforms and the different SQL languages used depending on the tools involved. Sometimes other languages such as Python and JavaScript were involved, which I had never experienced before. To familiarize myself, I made a point to ask questions about how these things worked and who I could go to in order to learn more. I encourage you to do the same thing in your own career and even while you pursue this certificate. Don't hesitate to ask questions in the discussion forums when you encounter a topic that you want to learn more about. There's a lot of information being covered. In this section of the course, we'll first explore how to successfully collaborate with a diverse group of stakeholders. Then you'll discover how near real-time rapid monitoring enables users to collect and report on key metrics, then apply them to make better decisions. In addition, you'll start building some career resources by enhancing your online presence, developing strategies for networking and mentorship, and building a portfolio that will impress future hiring managers. All of that starts by understanding an organization's business needs and important deliverables. After all, if you want to achieve your objectives, you first have to define them. Now, I've got a question for you. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. As you're discovering, BI professionals are passionate about helping people do their jobs more effectively. In my work, I feel a huge sense of accomplishment when I know that I've saved my stakeholders time, helped them find a better process, or showed them a whole new approach. This enables them to focus on other tasks where they can maximize their unique strengths and interests. But before I can do any of that, I first have to get to know them, their roles and responsibilities, and their business goals. After all, different people require different BI insights. But once I have that understanding, I can much more easily determine what a particular project is all about and what my stakeholders are expecting me to deliver. And this is what we're going to explore now in this video. As a quick refresher, a stakeholder is someone who invests time and resources into a project and is interested in its outcome. Typically, this is because they need the work you do to perform their own tasks. But sometimes it's the other way around. You need them. Either way, it's all about teamwork, and that's why it's so critical to ensure that outputs align with the team's requirements. Sometimes a stakeholder might be referred to as a client or user, but their general role is still the same. There are all sorts of stakeholders in the BI process, but we're going to focus on the 4 most common ones. These include the project sponsor, the systems analyst, the developer, and the business stakeholders. Let's start with the project sponsor. This person has overall accountability for a project and establishes the criteria for its success. Accountability involves accounting for, or being responsible for, project activities. Project sponsors are representatives of the business side, which typically means they're involved when a project is being envisioned, and they advocate for its undertaking. And because the project sponsor is responsible for sharing events, changes, and milestones with other stakeholders in a timely and transparent manner, it's important for BI professionals to always keep the project sponsor informed. Here's an example. In a previous team, I worked on an initiative that involved the customer service department changing its operational platform. The project sponsor was the director of cloud systems. She was responsible for the vision for the project, gathering the relevant teams together, and establishing key objectives. As the BI professional, I made sure to provide her with the information she needed to support this effort, such as what inputs I would need and how long it would take me to create a dashboard. The developer is the next stakeholder on our list. Developers use programming languages to create, execute, test, and troubleshoot software applications. You may hear them called computer programmers, coders, or software engineers. There are two primary types of developers: applications software developers and systems software developers. Apps developers design computer or mobile applications. Because their work is largely focused on creating for consumers, these professionals are focused on user needs, monitoring performance and modifying programs as needed. System software developers are more likely to be stakeholders on a BI project because they develop applications and programs for the back-end processing systems used in organizations. Going back to my example of the customer service project, the system software developer worked on the platform's back-end settings to ensure that data flowed into data tables, which analysts used to determine how happy customers were with the customer service department. Next up is the systems analyst. This person identifies ways to design, implement, and advance information systems in order to ensure that they help make it possible to achieve business goals. Systems analysts study how an organization uses its computer, hardware, and software, cloud services, and related technologies. Then they use what they learn to iterate on and improve these tools. For instance, during the customer service project, the systems analysts work with the raw data provided by the systems software developer. Then they organized it into data that I, as a BI professional, could use for reporting purposes. Now we've come to business stakeholders. If you're familiar with the Google Data Analytics Certificate, then you've learned a lot about these people. Business stakeholders invest time and resources into a project and are interested in its outcome. Feel free to revisit that content if you'd like to review business stakeholders before moving on. All of the people you learn about in this video are different, so they'll all require different things from the BI process. The key is to always communicate proactively and prioritize teamwork. My project was a success because we were all in it together. Recently, we've been exploring key elements of the business intelligence process. We spent some time getting to know typical BI stakeholders, including the project sponsor, systems analyst, developer, and general business stakeholders. Now, we're going to take that a step further and consider some important communication strategies that BI professionals use when collaborating with these people. These strategies involve knowing how to ask the right questions, define project deliverables, and effectively share the business intelligence you discover. No BI project is 100% clear from the very beginning, so you'll often need to put on your detective's hat. A critical part of being a BI professional is knowing how to investigate what's currently going on, then looking for clues to better understand people's needs and ideal project outcomes. My colleagues and I often note that a stakeholder, partner, or coworker might say they need one thing, but what they actually need is very different. And it's up to us to get to the bottom of it and help them succeed. In such circumstances, having strong communication skills will enable you to dig deeper into the problem, challenge, or opportunity, then identify how you can approach the issue in the most effective way. This process starts with asking the right questions. If you earned the Google Data Analytics Certificate, you spent an entire course focusing on this ask phase of the data analysis process. As a quick refresher, this involves understanding the difference between effective and ineffective questions. Knowing what types of questions bring about the best insights enables you to use questioning to fully understand stakeholder expectations, especially when what they're asking for is different from what your professional experience indicates they require. If you're comfortable with the ask phase, continue to the next part of this lesson. Or if you'd like to review these principles, feel free to do so now. Okay. After asking the right questions in order to thoroughly understand the project, it's time to define project deliverables. A deliverable is any product, service, or outcome that must be achieved in order to complete a project. This could be a new BI dashboard, a report, a completed analysis, documentation of a process or decision, Pretty much anything requested by stakeholders can be a deliverable. In BI, the most common deliverables are the dashboards and reports that provide insights to users. When brainstorming which deliverables to produce, it's helpful to make a list of the problems to solve, challenges to overcome, or opportunities to maximize. Then think about the workflow for each business process involved. This helps you visualize the types of dashboards or reports that will be most productive, how many are necessary, and what specific elements each of them requires. For example, when I'm asked to create a dashboard, I'll grab a piece of paper and start drawing example charts in a mockup. Then I share them with the users. This helps in two ways. First, it ensures my vision of the dashboard is what they had in mind. And second, it enables me to confirm for myself that it all makes sense. Okay, now the final step, effectively sharing business intelligence. It's important to know how to make complicated technical data more straightforward and accessible for people who are unfamiliar with the terminology and systems involved. Being able to present intelligence in a clear and concise manner is fundamental to making sure that decision makers understand the insights and can put your recommendations into practice. Also, at this point in the process, an essential responsibility of every BI professional is to consider bias. As you likely know, bias is a conscious or subconscious preference in favor or against a person, group of people, or thing. There are many different types of bias that can affect a data-related project, such as confirmation bias, data bias, interpretation bias, and observer bias. These concepts were taught in depth in the Google Data Analytics certificate, so please review them now if you need to. Every project you work on must start with a focus on fairness, which means that your work doesn't create or reinforce bias. BI professionals have a lot of power because we're the ones translating very technical topics into a simple language for others. It's vital that your translation is fair. After all, your team is trusting you. You'll continue building your communication skills all throughout this program. And in no time, you'll be ready to thoughtfully share even the most complex BI insights. Have you ever been shopping online and added something to your cart, but then ultimately decided not to purchase it? I know I have. I absolutely love cooking, and I like to shop online for cookbooks, interesting spices, or maybe even a new kitchen gadget. But sometimes I change my mind before checking out because I choose to save the money instead. Or I decide that the kitchen tools I already have will work just fine for my recipe. When that happens, the online store has what's called an abandoned cart. And according to e-commerce platform Shopify, online merchants lose $18 billion a year in sales revenue because of cart abandonment. This is a big problem, but it's one that business intelligence professionals are very skilled at solving. In this video, we'll consider exactly how that works. BI professionals can use data to identify where a customer came from, whether a Google search, an email link, or maybe a social media post. Then they can visualize the journey the shopper took when visiting the website. They're even able to pinpoint exactly where that customer dropped off and try to figure out why. For example, a BI professional might create a tool to monitor how quickly the website checkout page is loading. If the team decides that it's taking too long, the company can dedicate resources to improve website speed and hopefully keep that customer in the future. The measure of a website page loading speed is an example of a metric. A metric is a single quantifiable data point that is used to evaluate performance. In BI, some of the most important metrics are KPIs, which you've learned are quantifiable values closely linked to business strategy that tracks progress towards a goal. Many people confuse KPIs and metrics, but they are different things. The basic point to keep in mind is that metrics support KPIs, and in turn, KPIs support overall business objectives. It's also helpful to understand that KPIs are strategic, whereas metrics are tactical. Going back to our abandoned cart example, strong KPIs might be the average value of each online transaction, customer retention, or year-over-year sales. Think of it this way. A strategy is a plan for achieving a goal or arriving at a desired future state. It involves making and carrying out plans to reach what you're trying to accomplish. A tactic is how you get there. It's a method used to enable an accomplishment, including actions, events, and activities. Tactics take place along the way as part of your strategy to reach your final objective, like stepping stones between each milestone. Reach enough milestones and you'll reach your goal. Understanding business objectives and what is needed in order to achieve them is the first step in BI monitoring. BI monitoring involves building and using hardware and software tools to easily and rapidly analyze data and enable stakeholders to make impactful business decisions. So, let's say our e-commerce merchant sets a goal to decrease cart abandonment by 15% in 6 months. The BI professional would create a tool that monitors web page loading speeds in order to help achieve that KPI. Rapid monitoring means that the people using BI tools are receiving live or close to live data. In this way, key decision makers know right away if there's a steep rise in the number of abandoned carts, or if they run out of inventory on a popular product, or if customer service representatives are receiving an unusually high volume of calls. Knowing right away means that the company can fix whatever the problem may be as quickly as possible. And this is one of the main ways in which BI professionals add real value to their organizations. Later in this course, you'll learn more about how to select appropriate metrics. Lots more to come.
Hello, I'm Anita, a business intelligence analyst at Google. I can't wait to help guide you through the career lessons throughout this program. I really hope this experience is giving you all kinds of new possibilities to think about. I'm sure that with my awesome colleague Sally, you've already learned so much already. You've begun exploring the day-to-day responsibilities of BI professionals, the roles of different team members and stakeholders, key tools in the BI toolbox such as pipelines and dashboards, and lots more. You're gaining a vast range of knowledge and skills, which are going to be extremely valuable as you prepare to join us in the amazing field of BI. At this point in the program, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on how your experiences so far are setting you up for a great career. And one way to do that is by enhancing your current online presence. If you completed the Google Data Analytics certificate, it covered numerous job-related materials, including how to create an effective resume and LinkedIn profile. This video is about improving your existing career assets. So if you'd like to revisit those lessons to be sure you're prepared for what's to come, go ahead and do so now. Okay, let's get into the value of having a compelling and professional LinkedIn presence. A professional online presence enables you to better connect with others in the field. You can share ideas, ask questions, or provide links to a useful website or an interesting article in the news. These are great ways to meet other people who are passionate about BI. Even if you're already a part of the BI community, strengthening your network makes it even more dynamic. LinkedIn is an amazing way to follow industry trends, learn from thought leaders, and stay engaged with the global BI community. Similarly, membership in LinkedIn listed groups keeps you informed, helps you better understand industry trends, and much more. And of course, LinkedIn has job boards and recruiters who are actively looking for BI professionals for all sorts of organizations and industries. On my team, we begin our candidate searches for all BI roles through LinkedIn, focusing on key skills and experience required for the role. Many of the keywords that we use are exactly the concepts that you're learning in this program. It's a good idea to always keep your profile up to date and be sure to include a professional photo. Beyond that, consider including a link to some of the relevant work you've done in BI, such as the end-of-course project you'll explore during this program. As you continue expanding your online presence to represent the work you're doing in BI, the connections you make will be an important part of having a truly fulfilling experience. Plus, there are also so many rewarding in-person networking opportunities which we'll soon explore. See you then! Recently, you learned about the value of maintaining a professional online presence and connecting with others in the business intelligence field. As I noted, there are many professional networking sites, such as LinkedIn, that are well worth your time and involvement. But there are lots of other ways to be proactive about your professional development. For example, many organizations use personal referrals when hiring. In fact, according to the Society for Human Resource Management, employee referrals are the top source of external hires. So let's start exploring how to tap into this opportunity by building valuable relationships. After all, The more people you connect with professionally, the greater your chances are of being referred. First, there are many more websites that are wonderful ways to get to know other people in business intelligence. Be sure to follow best-in-class organizations and visionary business leaders on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Interact with them and share their content. If there's a post you like, consider commenting with a response or a thank you. You can also search for BI webinars featuring interesting speakers, and many of these events are free. It can be another fascinating way to learn while connecting with peers, colleagues, and experts. And there are also lots of blogs and online communities that focus on BI. Some of the popular ones include Information Week's website, Forrester's Business Intelligence blog, and Tableau's blog. Next, we have in-person networking opportunities. The easiest way to find events is by simply searching for business intelligence events in your area. You'll likely find meetups with posted schedules of upcoming get-togethers, seminars, and conferences. Nonprofit associations are also wonderful resources, and many offer free or reduced-rate memberships for students. Okay, now let's spend some time discovering how mentorship can positively influence your career and life. As you may know, a mentor is someone who shares knowledge, skills, and experience to help you grow both professionally and personally. Mentors are trusted advisors, sounding boards, and valuable resources. The first step in finding a mentor is to figure out what you're looking for. Think about any challenges you face or foresee and how to address them in order to advance professionally. Then consider who can help you grow in these areas, as well as fortify your existing strengths. Share these things openly when you formally ask someone to be your mentor. It's also helpful to note any common experiences. Perhaps you grew up in the same city. Maybe you both worked in the same industry. Your mentor doesn't have to be someone you currently work with. Many people find mentors on LinkedIn, an association mentorship program, or at a mentor matching event. As for me, I found a mentor who was a business partner of mine. I loved her leadership style, how she interacted with her stakeholders, and managed her team. After working with her for quite some time, I told her I really admired her and asked if she'd be my mentor. I knew she could help me develop my skills as a people manager, and she was happy to. This experience really taught me the value of mentorship. I also learned that successful mentorship requires effort and investment in time. Whether you're preparing to ask the right questions, internalizing the feedback, or scheduling follow-up sessions. But it's well worth it. Always be open to connecting with new people. You never know where a single conversation will lead. Hello, I'm Anita, a business intelligence analyst at Google. My very first job was I was a librarian at the public library in my hometown, and that was a job where I was talking to people every single day. They had questions about where to find a book. I need something that covers XYZ. And that really helped me learn and figure out how to talk to people who maybe have a problem and don't know how to solve it, but they're looking for you for help. I think that was a huge starting point for my career in BI. I got into BI not through a straight path. I started off working in accounts payable and accounts receivable and helping optimize those processes for my clients. Through working with them, started to hear a lot about the need for analytics and the need for understanding, I have so much data, but what's the important piece that comes out of this? And so from hearing that from my clients, it started me down this path of, okay, what tools are out there? How can I help them find those insights? And that led me to one job after the other until ultimately I found myself in business intelligence. And I can't really imagine working in any other field. With each successive job that I've had, whether it be as a data analyst in accounts payable and accounts receivable, or working in a collections department, I've picked up things for how to tell a successful story through data. And ultimately, I think that's a little bit of what BI comes back to, is what are the trends, patterns, insights that we're looking for that's going to tell a compelling story that let people make decisions using that information. The one piece of advice I have for people getting into BI is really focus on your people skills and the networking. The technical skills are important. The coding, the SQL, understanding the databases and the different programs that we use is important. That's how you'll do your job day to day. But what will really make you stand out is how you're able to engage with your stakeholders, how you're able to engage with the different teams that you're working with, and how you take all of the things that you're hearing from them and eventually synthesize them into that final BI product that's going to help them get insights from their data. I think everybody has transferable skills. Every job that you've had, every experience that you've been through, you've learned something from it. And if you take a moment to think about what it is that you learned from that, maybe it's your first job in high school. Maybe it's an experience that you had in university where working with a group, you were negotiating difficult team dynamics. Every single one of those is a transferable skill that you can bring into the business intelligence field.
My name is Gerard, and I'm a principal lead in the analytics and decision support team in YouTube. And our team focuses on building out business intelligence and analytics for the YouTube business organization. Mentorship's been a huge part of my progression in my career. I've had the fortune of many mentors over the course of my career, both at Google and outside of Google, some from schooling, some just by happenstance, but every single one of them have given me something that was either a motivating factor or encouraged me to believe more in myself, or that just were there to listen to me vent about something not working or whatever it might be. Look for groups that are focused on the areas that you're interested in. If we're thinking about BI and analytics, there's so many groups of folks who are business intelligence professionals, and there's niche groups that are focused on data science or predictive analytics. I've also just reached out to people, whether it is via email or introductions from other folks that I know, LinkedIn. And I usually tend to look for people that are doing something that I'm interested in, that have a skill that I don't have. And I just reach out and say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation about XYZ thing and hear how you think about it. I've actually found that LinkedIn is a really powerful tool. It takes work, but it's a very simple entry point for networking. And when I say networking, I don't mean just small talk. I mean actually reaching out to someone in the hopes that they are someone that actually wants to be reached out to. And really being intentional about what it is you want to learn from people who have done something you want to do. Bet on yourself, because most likely there are not as many people who are doing the same, but the more you show and prove your capabilities, your stick-to-itiveness, whatever other adjective you can use, the more people will start to bet on you and the more opportunities that come from that.
Well, we've come to the end of another section. You learned about enhancing your online presence and maximizing networking and mentorship opportunities. You also investigated the various BI stakeholders and some proven methods for collaborating with them effectively. You discovered how rapid monitoring enables users to collect and report on key metrics, then apply them so organizations can make better decisions. In addition, you learned about how metrics support KPIs, which in turn support business objectives. And we emphasized the power that comes with the BI career and why it's so important to keep fairness in mind at all times. Your business intelligence knowledge and skills continue to develop and grow. I'm really happy to be with you on this exciting journey. Coming up, you have another graded assessment ahead. To prepare, be sure to check out the reading that lists all of the new glossary terms you've learned. And as always, take any time you need to review videos, readings, and your own notes to refresh yourself on all the content. Congrats on all of your progress. We'll connect again shortly.
As a data analyst, you'll be required to focus on a lot of different things, and your stakeholders' expectations are one of the most important. We're going to talk about why stakeholder expectations are so important to your work and look at some examples of stakeholder needs on a project. By now you've heard me use the term stakeholder a lot, so let's refresh ourselves on what a stakeholder is. Stakeholders are people that have invested time, interest, and resources into the projects that you'll be working on as a data analyst. In other words, they hold stakes in what you're doing. there's a good chance they'll need the work you do to perform their own needs. That's why it's so important to make sure your work lines up with their needs, and why you need to communicate effectively with all of the stakeholders across your team. Your stakeholders will want to discuss things like the project objective, what you need to reach that goal, and any challenges or concerns you have. This is a good thing. These conversations help build trust and confidence in your work. Here's an example of a project with multiple team members. Let's explore what they might need from you at different levels to reach the project's goal. Imagine you're a data analyst working with a company's human resources department. The company has experienced an increase in its turnover rate, which is the rate at which employees leave a company. The company's HR department wants to know why that is, and they want you to help them figure out potential solutions. The vice president of HR at this company is interested in identifying any shared patterns across employees who quit and seeing if there's a connection to employee productivity and engagement. As a data analyst, it's your job to focus on the HR department's question and to help find them an answer. But the BP might be too busy to manage day-to-day tasks or might not be your direct contact. For this task, you'll be updating the project manager more regularly. Project managers are in charge of planning and executing a project. Part of the project manager's job is keeping the project on track and overseeing the progress of the entire team. In most cases, you'll need to give them regular updates. Let them know what you need to succeed and tell them if you have any problems along the way. You might also be working with other team members. For example, HR administrators will need to know the metrics you're using so that they can design ways to effectively gather employee data. You might even be working with other data analysts who are covering different aspects of the data. It's so important that you know who the stakeholders and other team members are in a project so that you can communicate with them effectively and give them what they need to move forward in their own roles on the project. You're all working together to give the company vital insights into this problem. So back to our example. By analyzing company data, you see a decrease in employee engagement and performance after their first 13 months at the company, which could mean that employees started feeling demotivated or disconnected from their work, and then often quit a few months later. Another analyst who focuses on hiring data also shares that the company had a large increase in hiring around 18 months ago. You communicate this information with all your team members and stakeholders, and they provide feedback on how to share this information with your VP. In the end, your VP decides to implement an in-depth manager check-in with employees who are about to hit their 12-month mark at the firm to identify career growth opportunities, which reduces the employee turnover starting at the 13-month mark. This is just one example of how you might balance needs and expectations across your team. You'll find that in pretty much every project you work on as a data analyst, different people on your team, from the VP of HR to your fellow data analysts, will need all your focus and communication to carry the project to success. Focusing on stakeholder expectations will help you understand the goal of a project, communicate more effectively across your team, and build trust in your work. Coming up, we'll discuss how to figure out where you fit on your team and how you can help move a project forward with focus and determination. Now that we've talked about 6 basic problem types, it's time to start solving them. To do that, data analysts start by asking the right questions. In this video, we're going to learn how to ask effective questions that lead to key insights you can use to solve all kinds of problems. As a data analyst, I ask questions constantly. It's a huge part of the job. If someone requests that I work on a project, I ask questions to make sure we're on the same page about the plan and the goals. And when I do get a result, I question it. Is the data showing me something superficially? Is there a conflict somewhere that needs to be resolved? The more questions you ask, the more you'll learn about your data and the more powerful your insights will be at the end of the day. Some questions are more effective than others. Let's say you're having lunch with a friend and they say, these are the best sandwiches ever, aren't they? Well, that question doesn't really give you the opportunity to share your own opinion, especially if you happen to disagree and didn't enjoy the sandwich very much. This is called a leading question because it's leading you to answer in a certain way. Or maybe you're working on a project and you decide to interview a family member. Say you ask your uncle, "Did you enjoy growing up in Malaysia?" He may reply, "Yes." But you haven't learned much about his experiences there. Your question was closed-ended. That means it can be answered with a yes or no. These kinds of questions rarely lead to valuable insights. Now, what if someone asks you, "Do you prefer chocolate or vanilla?" Well, what are they specifically talking about? Ice cream, pudding, coffee flavoring, or something else? What if you like chocolate ice cream but vanilla in your coffee? What if you don't like either flavor? That's the problem with this question. It's too vague and lacks context. Knowing the difference between effective and ineffective questions is essential for your future career as a data analyst. After all, the data analyst process starts with the ask phase. So it's important that we ask the right questions. Effective questions follow the SMART methodology. That means they're specific, measurable, action-oriented, relevant, and time-bound. Let's break that down. Specific questions are simple, significant, and focused on a single topic or a few closely related ideas. This helps us collect information that's relevant to what we're investigating. If a question is too general, try to narrow it down by focusing on just one element. For example, instead of asking a closed-ended question like, "Are kids getting enough physical activities these days?" Ask, "What percentage of kids achieve the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity at least 5 days a week?" That question is much more specific and can give you more useful information. Now, let's talk about measurable questions. Measurable questions can be quantified and assessed. An example of an unmeasurable question would be, "Why did our recent video go viral?" Instead, you could ask, "How many times was our video shared on social channels the first week it was posted?" That question is measurable because it lets us count the shares and arrive at a concrete number. Okay, now we've come to action-oriented questions. Action-oriented questions encourage change. You might remember that problem solving is about seeing the current state and figuring out how to transform it into the ideal future state. Well, action-oriented questions help you get there. So, rather than asking, "How can we get customers to recycle our product packaging?" you could ask, "What design features will make our packaging easier to recycle?" This brings you answers you can act on. All right, let's move on to relevant questions. Relevant questions matter, are important, and have significance to the problem you're trying to solve. Let's say you're working on a problem related to a threatened species of frog, and you asked, "Why does it matter that Pine Barrens tree frogs started disappearing?" This is an irrelevant question because the answer won't help us find a way to prevent these frogs from going extinct. A more relevant question would be, what environmental factors changed in Durham, North Carolina between 1983 and 2004 that could cause Pine Barrens tree frogs to disappear from the Sandhills region? This question would give us answers we can use to help solve our problem. That's also a great example for our final point, time-bound questions. Time-bound questions specify the time to be studied. The time period we want to study is 1983 to 2004. This limits the range of possibilities and enables the data analyst to focus on relevant data. Okay, now that you have a general understanding of SMART questions, there's something else that's very important to keep in mind when crafting questions: fairness. We've touched on fairness before, but as a quick reminder, fairness means ensuring that your questions don't create or reinforce bias. To talk about this, let's go back to our sandwich example. There, we had an unfair question because it was phrased to lead you toward a certain answer. This made it difficult to answer honestly if you disagreed about the sandwich quality. Another common example of an unfair question is one that makes assumptions. For instance, let's say a satisfaction survey is given to people who visit a science museum. If the survey asks, "What do you love most about our exhibits?" this assumes that the customer loves the exhibits, which may or may not be true. Fairness also means crafting questions that make sense to everyone. It's important for questions to be clear and have a straightforward wording that anyone can easily understand. Unfair questions also can make your job as a data analyst more difficult. They lead to unreliable feedback and missed opportunities to gain some truly valuable insights. You've learned a lot about how to craft effective questions, like how to use the SMART framework while creating your questions, and how to ensure that your questions are fair and objective. Moving forward, you'll explore different types of data and learn how each is used to guide business decisions. You'll also learn more about visualizations and how metrics or measures can help create success. It's going to be great.
Let's kick things off by traveling back in time. Well, in our minds at least. My real-time machine's in the shop. Imagine you're back in middle school and you've entered a project for the science fair. You worked hard for weeks perfecting every element, and they're about to announce the winners. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and you hear them call your name. For second place. Bummer. You really wanted that first place trophy, but hey, you'll take the ribbon for recognition. The next day, you learn the judge was the winner's uncle. How is that fair? Can he really be expected to choose a winner fairly when his own family member is one of the contestants? He's probably biased. Well, maybe his niece deserved to win, and maybe not. But the point is, it's very easy to make a case for bias in that scenario. Now, this is a super simple example, but the truth is, we run into bias all the time in everyday life. Our brains are biologically designed to streamline thinking and make quick judgments. Bias has evolved to become a preference in favor of or against a person, group of people, or thing, and it can be conscious or subconscious. The good news is, once we know and accept that we have bias, we can start to recognize our own patterns of thinking and learn how to manage it. It's important to know that bias can also find its way into the world of data. Data bias is a type of error that systematically skews results in a certain direction. Maybe the questions on a survey had a particular slant to influence answers, or maybe the sample group wasn't truly representative of the population being studied. For example, if you're going to take the median age of the US patient population with health insurance, you wouldn't just use a sample of Medicare patients who are 65 and older. Bias can also happen if a sample group lacks inclusivity. For example, people with disabilities tend to be underidentified, underrepresented, or excluded in mainstream health research. The way you collect data can also bias a dataset. For example, if you give people only a short time to answer questions, their responses will be rushed. When we're rushed, we make more mistakes, which can affect the quality of our data and create biased outcomes. As a data analyst, you have to think about bias and fairness from the moment you start collecting data to the time you present your conclusions. After all, those conclusions can have serious implications. Think about this. It's been acknowledged that clinical studies of heart health tend to include a lot more men than women. This has led to women failing to recognize symptoms and ultimately having their heart conditions go undetected and untreated. That's just one way bias can have a very real impact. While we've come a long way in recognizing bias, it's still led to you losing out to the judge's niece at that science competition. And it's still influencing business decisions, healthcare choices and access, governmental action, and more. So we've still got work to do. Coming up, we'll show you how to identify bias in the data itself and explore some scenarios when you may actually benefit from it.
Great, you're back. When you take a picture, you usually try to capture lots of different things in one image. Maybe you're taking a picture of the sunset and want to capture the clouds, the tree line, and the mountains. Basically, you want a snapshot of that entire moment. You can think of building your resume in the same way. You want your resume to be a snapshot of all that you've done both in school and professionally. In this video, we'll go through the process of building a resume, which you'll be able to add your own details to. Keep in mind this is a snapshot. So when managers and recruiters look at what you've included in your resume, they should be able to tell right away what you can offer their company. The key here is to be brief. Try to keep everything in one page and each description to just a few bullet points. 2 to 4 bullet points is enough, but remember to keep your bullet points concise. Sticking to one page will help you stay focused on the details that best reflect who you are or who you want to be professionally. One page might also be all that hiring managers and recruiters have time to look at. They're busy people, so you want to get their attention with your resume as quickly as possible. Now let's talk about actually building your resume. This is where templates come in. They're a great way to build a brand new resume or reformat one you already have. Programs like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and even some job search websites, all have templates you can use. A template has placeholders for the information you'll need to enter and its own design elements to make your resume look inviting. You'll have a chance to explore this option a little later. For now, we'll go through the steps you can take to make your resume professional, easy to read, and error-free. If you already have a resume document, you can use these steps to tweak it. Now, there's more than one way to build a resume, but most have contact information at the top of the document. This includes your name, address, phone number, and email address. If you have multiple email addresses or phone numbers, use the ones that are most reliable and sound professional. It's also great if you can use your first and last name in your email address, like janedoe17@email.com. You should also make sure that your contact information matches the details that you've included on professional websites. And while most resumes have contact information in the same place, it's up to you on how you organize that info. A format that focuses more on skills and qualifications and less on work history is great for people who have gaps in their work history. It's also good for those who are just starting out their career or making a career change. And that might be you. If you do want to highlight your work history, feel free to include details of your work experience, starting with your most recent job. If you've had lots of jobs that are related to a new position you're applying for, this format makes sense. If you're editing a resume you already have, you can keep it in the same format and adjust the details. If you're starting a new one or building a resume for the first time, choose the format that makes the most sense for you. There's lots of resume resources online. You should browse through a bunch of different resumes to get an idea of the formats you think works best for you. Once you've decided on your format, you can start adding your details. Some resumes begin with the summary, but this is optional. A summary can be helpful if you have experience that is not traditional for a data analyst, or if you're making a career transition. If you decide to include a summary, keep it to 1 or 2 sentences that highlight your strengths and how you can help the company you're applying to. You'll also want to make sure your summary includes positive words about yourself, like dedicated and proactive. You can support those words with data like the number of years you've worked or the tools you're experienced in, like SQL and spreadsheets. A summary might start off with something like hardworking customer service representative with over 5 years of experience. And once you've completed this program and have your certificate, you'll be able to include that too, which could sound like this. Entry-level data analytics professional. Recently completed the Google Data Analytics Professional Certificate. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Another option is leaving a placeholder for your summary while you build the rest of your resume, and then writing it after you finish the other sections. This way, you can review the skills and experience you've mentioned and grab 2 or 3 of the highlights to use in your summary. It's also good to note that the summary might change a little as you apply for different jobs. If you're including a work experience section, there's lots of different types of experience you could add. Outside of jobs with other companies, you could also include volunteer positions you've had and any freelance or side work you've done. The key here is the way in which you describe these experiences. Try to describe the work you did in a way that relates to the position you're applying for. Most job descriptions have minimum qualifications or requirements listed. These are the experiences, skills, and education you'll need to be considered for the job. So it's important to clearly state them in your resume. If you're a good match, the next step is checking out preferred qualifications, which lots of job descriptions also include. These aren't required, but every additional qualification you match makes you a more competitive candidate for the role. Including any part of your skills and experience that matches a job description will help your resume rise above the competition. So, if a job listing describes a job responsibility as effectively managing data resources, you'll want to have your own description that reflects that responsibility. For example, if you volunteered or worked at a local school or community center, you might say that you effectively manage resources for after-school activities. Later on, you'll learn more ways to make your work history work for you. It's helpful to describe your skills and qualifications in the same way. For example, if a listing talks about organization and partnering with others, try to think about relevant experiences you've had. Maybe you've helped organize the food drive or partnered with someone to start an online business. In your descriptions, you want to highlight the impact you've had in your role, as well as the impact the role had on you. If you helped a business get started or reach new heights, talk about that experience and how you played a part in it. Or if you worked at a store when it first opened, you can say that you helped launch the successful business by ensuring quality customer service. If you use data analytics in any of your jobs, you'll definitely want to include that as well. We'll cover how to add specific data analysis skills a little bit later. One way to do this is to follow a formula in your descriptions. Accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. Here's an example of how this might read on a resume. Selected as one of 275 participants nationwide for this 12-month professional development program for high-achieving talent based on leadership potential and academic success. And if you've gained new skills in one of your experiences, be sure to highlight them all and how they helped. This is probably as good a spot as any to bring up data analytics. Even if this program is the first time you really thought about data analytics, now that you're equipped with some knowledge, you'll want to use that to your benefit. So if you've ever managed money, maybe that means you helped a business analyze future earnings, or maybe you created a budget based on your analysis of previous spending. Even if it was for your own or a friend's small business, it's still data that you've analyzed. Now you can reflect on when and how and use it in your resume. After you've added work experience and skills, you should include a section for any education you've completed. And yes, this course absolutely counts. You can add this course as part of your education, and you can also refer to it in your summary and skills sections. Depending on the format of your resume, you might want to add a section for technical skills you've acquired, both in this course and elsewhere. Besides technical skills like SQL, you could also include language proficiencies in this section. Having some ability in a language other than English can only help your job search. So now you have an idea of how to make your resume look professional and appealing. As you move forward, you'll learn even more about how to make your resume shine. By the end, you'll have a resume you can be proud of. Next up, we'll talk about how to make your resume truly unique. See you soon.